The 1950s, an era of rock and roll, convertibles, and the booming American dream. But beneath that polished surface, a quiet revolution was brewing in the automotive world. It didn't begin with the roar of the 426 HEMI or smoky burnouts from Chevelle SS. It began with bold experiments, where American engineers stuffed massive V8s into relatively compact coupes. Back then, they didn't call them muscle cars, but today, we know that's exactly what they were. Every car in this video is a piece of that history, a time when power mattered more than practicality, when performance became personal. And you might be surprised to see, before the Mustang, GTO, or Charger, there were already names paving the way. Let's rewind the clock and explore the 12 early muscle cars of the 1950s, the machines that laid the foundation for America's muscle car explosion. 1949, Oldsmobile Rocket, 88. If you had to name the very first true American muscle car, many would point straight to the Rocket 88. Back in 1949, when most cars were still running flathead or underpowered inline sixes, Oldsmobile did something revolutionary. They combined their lightweight mid-size 76 body with a brand new overhead valve V8, the Rocket 303 cubic inches. The result? A coupe that could move, muscle, and challenge just about anything on the road. The Rocket V8 produced about 135 horsepower, but more importantly, it delivered torque early and hard, something stock car racers instantly fell in love with. On the NASCAR tracks, the Rocket 88 quickly gained legendary status. And on the streets, it lit a fire under post-war youth hungry for speed. It wasn't the prettiest, it wasn't the most luxurious, but it was the first car to say, power can belong to the people. Over 70 years later, the Rocket 88 is still regarded by enthusiasts as the cornerstone. Without it, the muscle car movement as we know it may never have happened. 1956, Hudson Hornet, V8 Hollywood. Mention the Hudson Hornet and most people picture the inline-six beast that dominated NASCAR in the early 50s. But few know that, in its final years before the merger, Hudson released something special, the Hornet V8 Hollywood, with a bold step into the muscle era. For the first time, Hudson moved beyond its signature 6 and adopted a Packard-sourced 352 cubic inch V8, pushing out 285 horsepower, highly competitive for its time. More than just an engine swap, this fastback two-door coupe featured improved suspension, better aerodynamics, and a design that was both elegant and unmistakably bold. Despite the flashy Hollywood name, this car wasn't just about looks. It was Hudson's last defiant stand. From a small brand that once shook up the racing world. While it was overshadowed by bigger names, the V8 Hornet kept its fighting spirit alive. Today, it's rarely seen on muscle car lists, but once you know its story, it becomes clear. This was one of the rare transformations where a track legend tried to take its power to the streets and did it with class. 1957, Rambler Rebel. When you think muscle car, AMC probably isn't the first name that comes to mind. But in 1957, they created one of the boldest and most shocking sleeper cars of the decade. The Rambler Rebel, a four-door sedan that looked pretty tame. But don't be fooled. Underneath was AMC's brand new 327 cubic inch V8, making 255 horsepower tucked into a compact, lightweight body. The result? The Rebel was America's fastest production sedan in 1957, outpacing big names like the Chevy Bel Air and Ford Fairlane. It could do 0 to 60 miles per hour in just about 7 seconds, blazing fast for a family car. And here's the twist. AMC even experimented with electronic fuel injection on the Rebel. If it had launched, it would have been the first EFI production car in America. Though cancelled last minute, it showed how ahead of its time the Rebel really was. The Rambler Rebel wasn't flashy. It didn't shout for attention. But it stood as a symbol of hidden performance. Humble on the outside, fierce within. 1957, Ford Thunderbird supercharged. When Ford introduced the Thunderbird in 1955, they didn't call it a sports car. They called it a personal car. Luxurious, elegant, but with a rebellious streak hiding beneath the suit. And by 1957, that streak turned into a serious weapon. The Ford Thunderbird Supercharged was a special, ultra-rare edition. At its heart was a 312 cubic inch V8 fitted with a McCulloch supercharger, pushing output to 300 horsepower, an impressive figure for a small two-seater. This T-Bird wasn't just about looks, it blurred the lines between style and performance. With a solid chassis, refined suspension, and the signature whine of its supercharger under acceleration, it felt like a race car in a tuxedo. While it may not fit the traditional muscle car mold, the Thunderbird Supercharged proved one thing: power doesn't have to shout. Sometimes it whispers just loud enough to make everyone else nervous. 1956, Packard Caribbean. If there's one car that blends American muscle with aristocratic elegance, it's the Packard Caribbean. While the rest of Detroit raced toward tail fins and space-age looks, the Caribbean took a different path. Refined power, built to last, and produced in ultra-limited numbers. Visually, it was one of the most stunning two-door coupes of its time. Hand-finished tri-tone paint, premium leather interior, and gleaming chrome details. But the magic lived under the hood. A 374 cubic inch V8, the largest engine Packard ever built, delivering 310 horsepower and over 400 pound-feet of torque. It also featured the advanced torsion-level suspension, allowing the car to remain level under hard acceleration or braking. Despite weighing nearly 5,000 pounds, the Caribbean could launch with surprising urgency, catching lighter rivals off guard. Only about 276 units were ever built, making the 1956 Caribbean not just rare, but a proud farewell from Packard before the brand faded into history. 1958, Pontiac Bonavville. By the late 1950s, Pontiac was in an identity crisis. The brand was seen as a car for old folks, and that had to change. The answer came in the form of a name that would become legendary: Bonavville. In 1958, Pontiac launched the first full production version of the Bonavville, and it was unlike anything the brand had done before. Every Bonaville came standard with Rochester mechanical fuel injection, a cutting-edge move in an era where most American cars still relied on carburetors. Its 370 cubic inch V8 delivered between 310 and 330 horsepower, depending on setup. But the Bonaville didn't just talk numbers. It had sharp styling, a long and low stance, thick chrome trim, and a luxurious interior. Everything fused into something that was both powerful and elegant, like a muscle-bound gentleman in a tux. And that's what Pontiac pulled off, turning Bonaville into a true symbol of American performance, laying the groundwork for icons like the GTO that would follow. 1957, Pontiac Bonaville Convertible. In 1957, Pontiac was desperate for a makeover. They wanted to shed their boring image and appeal to a new generation, younger, faster, and hungry for speed. The answer came in the form of a convertible that was stylish, powerful, and just a little rebellious, the 1957 Pontiac Bonavville Convertible. This wasn't a regular production car. It was a limited edition, with only 630 units ever built. What made it special was the engine, a 347 cubic inch V8 with Rochester mechanical fuel injection, producing up to 310 horsepower. Impressive numbers, especially paired with a low, lightweight, convertible body. The Bonavville wasn't just fast, it was futuristic. It was one of the first American cars to feature electronic fuel injection instead of a carburetor. It also had a high-dramatic transmission, two-tone interior, a sporty steering wheel, and design cues from Pontiac's fresh, wide-track philosophy. This convertible wasn't just about performance, it was a declaration of Pontiac's new direction. It became the opening act to the muscle car revolution that Pontiac would soon lead with the GTO. 1957, Lincoln Premier. Some cars don't need to shout to show their power. They don't wear GT badges or race on the track, but they still earn respect. The Lincoln Premier is one of them. Aimed squarely at the luxury market, the Premier was Lincoln's answer to Cadillac. And Lincoln knew that looks alone wouldn't win the battle. They needed speed. They needed muscle. So beneath the elegant coupe's hood sat the 368 cubic inch MEL V8, the biggest and most powerful engine Ford had put into a production car up to that point. With 300 horsepower and over 400 lb-ft of torque, the Premier wasn't just powerful, it was shockingly quick, especially considering its nearly 5,000-pound curb weight. Driving it offered a strange, exhilarating contrast, a deep V8 growl, forceful acceleration, and the sense that you were piloting something rich but rebellious. The Premier doesn't usually make performance car lists, but it's living proof that big block V8 muscle wasn't limited to lightweight coupes. Sometimes it came wrapped in a true American limousine. 1955 Buick Century. It was often called by a curious nickname, the banker's hot rod, a muscle car for the successful businessman. And if you understand what makes a muscle car, you'll see why the Buick Century belongs on this list. The Century was a blend of two worlds, the compact chassis of the Buick Special and the powerful 322 cubic inch V8, borrowed from the full-size Roadmaster. The result? A coupe that could go 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 9 seconds. Quite impressive for a luxury car of its time. Its 236 horsepower wasn't the highest figure of the decade, but what set the Century apart was how it delivered that power. Smooth, consistent, yet mechanically emotional. It didn't scream like a sports car, but it had the quiet confidence of something that knows it's strong. The Buick Century was one of the earliest examples of the small car, big engine philosophy, the very DNA that would define muscle cars in the 60s. And while it wasn't brash or rebellious, like those that followed, the Century carried muscle in its blood, just dressed in a necktie instead of a t-shirt. 1957, Dodge Custom Royal Lancer D500. In 1957, while GM and Ford flaunted fins and fancy interiors, Dodge had what young drivers really wanted: a two-door coupe with pure track-bred muscle, the Custom Royal Lancer D500. The D500 wasn't just a dressed-up Dodge, it was purpose-built for performance, with a 325 cubic inch HEMI 5.8, featuring hemispherical combustion chambers and pushing up to 310 horsepower in the Super D 500 configuration. It included a hotter camshaft, dual 4-barrel carbs, and upgraded suspension. This car accelerated so hard that many street racers of the era dubbed it the Beast of Main Street. Despite its sizable body, The D500's robust drivetrain and 3-speed torque-flight automatic made it a sleeper killer in straight-line runs. The custom Royal Lancer D500 clearly embodied a new idea. A muscle car didn't have to be small. It just had to be bold enough to stuff brute force into the biggest coupe available. Though few mention it today, in 1957, this Dodge was the top choice for drivers who wanted a street machine, built with real NASCAR blood in its veins. 1956, Mercury Montlair. Amidst a sea of famous names from GM and Mopar, Mercury, Ford's lesser-known division, is often overlooked. But in 1956, they had a strong answer to the rising power wars, the Mercury Montlair. This two-door coupe was a style icon of the 1950s, with sweeping chrome accents, two-tone rooflines, and an interior that looked like it came straight from a sci-fi film. But more importantly, it wasn't just a pretty face. The Montlair came equipped with the Super Marauder 312 cubic inch V8, delivering 210 to 235 horsepower, depending on configuration. And thanks to its relatively light weight, the car could offer surprisingly brisk acceleration. Montlair also had a secret weapon, the smooth, shifting Merco-matic automatic transmission, enabling near-seamless gear changes and giving the car a ride that felt both refined and forceful. Though it doesn't get remembered as often as its louder rivals, the Montlair played an important role, introducing Americans to the idea of luxury performance, something that would later flourish in upscale muscle cars. 1958, Edsel Corsair. The name Edsel is often associated with failure. But if you look past the marketing missteps and controversial design, there were moments where Edsel truly shined, and the Corsair with the 410 V8 is one of them. The Corsair was a full-size model aimed at the upscale market, big, heavy, and unmistakably different, especially with its polarizing front grille. But here's what most people overlook. It was among Ford's most powerful offerings at the time. Under the hood sat the massive MEL 410Ci V8, cranking out 345 horsepower and over 470 pound-feet of torque, numbers that rivaled high-performance contemporaries like the Chrysler 300 and Pontiac Bonavville. The Corsair also featured an electronic push-button gear selector, a futuristic idea that didn't quite catch on, but showed Edsel's desire to push boundaries in both design and innovation. Though it failed commercially with a roaring V8 heart and a spirit of bold experimentation, the Corsair 410 deserves to be remembered as a hidden muscle car disguised in luxury clothing. We've just finished a journey through time, back to an era where the term muscle car didn't even exist, yet the DNA was already written in steel and gasoline. 12 names, each one a different slice of history, from icons like the Rocket 88 to forgotten legends like the Buick Century and Edsel Corsair. They didn't shout, they didn't seek the spotlight, but they paved the way for the Mustangs, GTOs, and Chargers to roar to life. Now the question is, if you could take just one of these 12 cars home to your garage, which one would you choose and why? Drop a comment below and let us know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss any future journey with these one-of-a-kind machines.